Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Today we'll be discussing the spinal radiology for the physical therapist or the manual therapist. Please recite this Quranic dua. Now we'll be looking at how the cervical spine, how the thoracic spine, and how the lumbar spine they appear on the standard or plain radiographs. But before we really go to the discussion of the radiographs, we need to look at the structures or the parts of the vertebra individually and collectively how they appear on the radiograph. This is a standard typical cervical vertebra. On this you can see there is an anterior arch and a posterior arch. C1 has anterior arch and a posterior arch, two lateral masses shown by 3. Then the transverse process pierced by the foramina transversaria, and anterior median tubercle as well as posterior median tubercle and the occipital condyles are shown at 7. They articulate at this place. Now over here, this is the superior view. You can see this is the posterior arch, this is the anterior arch, this is the receptacle or the facets for the occipital condyles, and you can see the transverse process, the foramina transversaria, and this is the space for the dens, and here is the space for the odontide process and the annular ligament. This is just a CT scan to show you different features or different parts of a cervical vertebra. In this slice you can see the vertebral body, the foramina transversaria, then there is an anterior tubercle, posterior tubercle, central part of the costotransverse bar. This is called as the costotransverse bar. And then you can see the lamina, the pedicles, the lamina, the spinous process, which is bifid in this case. And within this spinal foramen you are looking at the spinal cord, which is surrounded by the CSF. Now this is the normal orientation. This is anterior view and this is the lateral view. You can see the schematic. On the anterior side there is the dens, which is a process, a tooth like process, which is originating from the C2, and it is posterior to C1 or the anterior arch of C1, and then you can see C2 and C3, and these are the transverse processes that can be seen. The facets cannot be seen very clearly in this view, but still you can see the impression of the facets. In this radiograph you can have a very good idea about the facets, about the spinous processes, about the vertebral bodies, but you cannot appreciate much about the transverse process. Now in this MRI slice you can see the normal anatomy, or you can tell me whether it is a T1 weighted image or T2 weighted image, because this is fat sensitive, so we'll call it simply as T1 weighted image, and water is looking as dark, so this is again a representation that it is T1 weighted image. And T1 weighted image, they are used to see or to assess or to look for the normal anatomy of the structures. Now over here you can see a lot of structures. You can clearly see the C1, because this is the arch of the atlas, and then this is the dens of the axis, C2, C3, and so on and so forth, C4, 5, 6, and 7. Then this is the supraspinous ligament that you can see. Interspinous ligament or the spinous ligament can also be seen. The spinal cord can also be seen. The CSF can also be seen, and the fat, the subcutaneous tissue, the muscles, especially the occipitalis muscle, can be seen, and foramen magnum can be seen, whereas the cerebellum, medulla, and midbrain bones, they all can be seen. Over here on the anterior side you can see the vertebral bodies and the intervertebral discs, and you can clearly see the subarachnoid space. Then you can also look for the anterior longitudinal ligament and the posterior longitudinal ligament, which is very evident in this slice. This is a normal radiograph or radiographic appearance of the cervical spine. of 11-year-old female, and this is a standard extension view or lateral view. Lateral view with extension, you can clearly see the vertebral bodies, then you can see the spines processes, you can look for the facets, and you can see the gaps between the facets, which indicates the cartilage or the presence of the cartilage. So they have a typical appearance, to some extent you can say a bow tie appearance, and this is a normal radiograph. And you can always rely on A, B, and C. You can also look for or have an idea about the soft tissue impression, how the soft tissue will appear, what is the impression of the soft tissues, and you can clearly see that the line or alignment or the symmetry of the cervical spine is preserved. So this is a very good or very clear image. Now there are a few basic projections that require some detailed discussion. On standard investigation, we have some schemes to consider, because if there is some sort of problem, a patient comes to you with atlantoaxial instability, and you suspect somebody to be having fixed or locked neck in just one position, and the patient is very apprehended to move. The patient is complaining of Lhermitte sign or paresthesias in upper limb or lower limbs, and he or she had a history of some fall or hit by some object, then we suspect a fracture of the dens. So for this, you can go for AP open mouth view. Then you can look for AP lower cervical spine lateral, and there are two oblique views as well, which are right and left oblique view. Now this is the AP open mouth, because the mouth is open because you want to see or look for the dens process, and it is on C2 and just posterior to C1. In this radiograph, you can clearly see the odontide process or the dens of C2 and then C1. The rest of the features or the rest of the details, they are not of much concern to us. Then you can look for AP lower cervical spine. In the anterior posterior view, this is the orientation, and you can see that the central ray, it passes directly from the anterior to the posterior side, and this is the normal configuration of the cervical spine, lower cervical spine, especially from the AP view. So in AP view, you can clearly see the impression of the trachea or the windpipe, and you can also see some part of the esophagus in the upper region, but not very clear. Then you can look for these spaces between the vertebrae. This is called the intervertebral space, and we assume that this space uh, is occupied by the intervertebral discs. Then you can also look for the spines process impression and the transverse process. You can also clearly see the foramina transversaria. You can see the ribs, and you can also see the transverse processes, the spines processes, the vertebral bodies, and you can see for the symmetry that if you draw these lines, or for example, if you draw a line from right side or from the left side or in the midline, there is no midline shift. All the structures, they are equidistant. The spaces between the vertebrae, they are preserved. So it is a very good and a normal image. In the lateral view, we want to look for the cervical vertebra, the intervertebral disc spaces, articular pillars, and the facet joints, as well as the spines process and pre-vertebral soft tissues. Okay, so in the lateral view, we look for all these structures, and this is the normal orientation of the patient as well as the position of the central ray. The lateral view is really very important because we want to look at all these structures. Now, as I told you before, that you have to draw some lines, and this is a very good example that you can look for the alignment of the cervical spine. This rule is applicable to whole of the spine. If you remember the cervical spine, let's say radiology, then you can easily have some idea about the radiological findings of the thoracic as well as the lumbar spine if you have just a bit of understanding about the anatomy. So you have to draw three lines. One line that is anterior to the vertebral body, or you can say in front of the vertebral body. It is very similar to as if the anterior longitudinal ligament. The second line is the line where the posterior longitudinal ligament lies, and the third line is where the spinous processes they ends usually. So if you have drawn these lines, these are imaginary lines, and they tell you whether there is an anterior slippage or posterior slippage, or you can also look for the distance between the vertebra. So normally when you progress from top to bottom, there is increase or increased space between the vertebral bodies, which shows the progressive increase in the height of the discs. So again, you can see these three lines. You can also look for the osteophytes. They may be present on the anterior side or the posterior side. If they are on the anterior side, there are no structures to be compressed. But if they are on the posterior side, then they can compress the cervical nerve roots as well as the cervical nerves and cause cervical neuralgia or cervical brachyalgia and things like that. This is the same. Then you can look for this view. This is the lateral cervical spine radiograph. You can clearly see the spine's process, and they have a typical Scottish dog like appearance. I repeat, Scottish dog like appearance of the facets of the spine. So this is the lateral view. You cannot clearly see the intervertebral foramen, but yet you can clearly see for the space between the intervertebral space or the space between the vertebrae, the facets, as well as the spinous process and other structures. These views they are really very important because these views they demonstrate the intervertebral foramina, the uncovertebral joint, facet joints, and the pedicles of the cervical vertebra. Both right and left obliques they can be obtained so that each of these structure is viewed individually. This is the normal orientation of the AP view, the posterior anterior, the left lateral and the right lateral, and these are the orientations of the left posterior oblique as well as left anterior oblique. So you can go for posterior and anterior oblique on the left side as well as on the right side. When you are looking up oblique view, this view is very important because in this view you can clearly look for the space which is intervertebral space or the intervertebral foramina. Now the intervertebral foramina is clinically very important because the nerves they emerge from these foramen, and if there is some sort of degeneration, we usually call it as cervical spondylosis or osteoarthritis of the cervical spine, or sometimes people have told it as degenerative change or degenerative condition. So in those conditions there is compression on the nerves, and this intervertebral foramen it is being reduced. This is how the anterior or the posterior oblique view is set, and you can clearly see the intervertebral foramen, the spinous process, and the Scottish dog appearance, as well as sorry, not the Scottish dog appearance. You can clearly see the facet joints and their orientation plus the transverse process. This is left posterior oblique. Again, you can clearly see the facets, the space between the vertebrae. You can clearly see the space between the vertebrae. You can see the vertebral bodies, the disc heights, and the uncovertebral joints as well. Then there can be lateral flexion or extension stress views. If you suspect some sort of degenerative change or subluxation, you can go for stress views. Now in this radiograph you can see this is basically a patient with rheumatoid arthritis, and there is instability. If upon this is extension stressed and this is flexion stressed, view. So in extension, the gap has been reduced to 1 millimeter, and but when in flexion, this gap has been increased to 5 millimeter. So this gap is normally uh, remain stationary, but with flexion it has increased, so we call it as instability. This is how the radiographs are set, and this is the orientation in the extension and the flexion view. You have to look for the Atlanto axial space. So this is the space between the dens and the, or you sometimes call it as atlanto-dental interface or the space. And this is really very important that in both these views this is same. So if this is same and this remains same, it means that there is no instability of the cervical spine. This clearly correlates with there is a test for instability which is called as Eller ligament test. So in the Eller ligament test, you translate the patient's head in the posterior direction while stabilizing the cervical spine, and if that test is positive, there is more likely chance of the patient having atlantoaxial instability. These are normal references lines that you should have in your mind. You can clearly see dislocation of the facet joints, bow tie appearance. Bow tie appearance is abnormal in this lateral view because this is the bow tie appearance and it shows cervical dislocation. This is MR image of the cervical spine. Over here you can see the disc bulge. The rest of the structures, they are appearing fine. Over here in this radiograph, you are looking at the disc degenerative space or disease or the degeneration of the cervical spine, especially in the upper region and the facets. This gap, this fine thin line in front of the arrowheads or arrows, this is visible over the lower cervical spine, but it is not visible in the upper cervical spine. This is oblique view, or you can call it as anterior or posterior oblique, depending upon, this is just a oblique view, but you can go for the anterior and posterior oblique as well. You can look for the intervertebral foramina, and over here you can see the intervertebral foramina is not good. You can clearly see the osteophytes, and they are compressing the cervical nerves at this level as well as at this level, but the encroachment on this level and this level is not way too much. These are basic radiographic changes that one can see. This is a patient having cervical rib. Basically the cervical rib is nothing, just a elongated transverse process of the cervical spine. Okay, so this is this is MRI image. Okay, so this is MRI image of the cervical spine. You can clearly see these. There is anterolisthesis. Now, if you look at the symmetry of the cervical spine, you can clearly see that the vertebrae, they are slipped and they are moving forward as compared to the superior vertebra. Now, there is a rule. Please remember why we call it as anterolisthesis or a retrolisthesis, because in relation to the inferior vertebra, what is the position of the superior vertebra? This is really very important. So if you look at this vertebra, the vertebral body is aligned with the superior vertebral bodies, but this immediate superior vertebra has moved anterior to this lower vertebra. So this is the reason we call it as anterolisthesis. And again, this is also anterior to the inferior vertebra. So again, at two regions you are looking at anterolisthesis along with the spinal cord compression. It is due to the cervical discs. So anterolisthesis as well as cervical cord compression. In the next slide, what we can see, the radiograph in flexion, and it is a lateral view. So this is clearly a normal or typically a normal radiograph with no abnormality seen, and this is a lateral radiograph in extension without any abnormality. Now if you look at the thoracic spine radiology, you have the same views, the AP and the lateral. In the AP view, you look all the same features that we discussed in the cervical spine. So we will not repeat this, but you can clear, you have to look for the alignment of the vertebral bodies, you need to look for the rotation of the thoracic column, rotation of the pedicles, and you can find some rotation which is not an abnormal finding, which is physiological. You need to see that the pedicles, they should be equidistant, and you need to see or measure the interpedicular distance, which is normally 20 millimeter. If it is more or less, then you can say either there is compression or subluxation. And you have to look for the interval between the each spinous process as well. The articular processes, they cast a butterfly shaped shadow on the vertebral body. So this is how a thoracic vertebra it appears. So this is with the vertebral body, and then the pedicles. From the pedicles, these are the superior and inferior articular processes. Then this is the spinous process, and these are the transverse processes. So this is similar to a mask, or you have clearly understood it or seen it by these features as well, and you can also memorize it as a person having a face like this with nose, eyes, ears, and mustaches. Now this is the AP view, or setting up the AP view. In the AP view, you can see progressively uh, increasing diameter of the vertebral bodies. You can see the spinous processes here as well, and you can see the pedicles, the transverse process, and the ribs. The thoracic vertebrae, they have the ribs, so sometimes there is a shadow of the rib as well. In the lateral thoracic spine view, you look for the vertebral body, intervertebral disc space, and the foramina. This is the positioning of the patient, and again you need to draw three lines: line 1, 2, and 3, anterior, posterior, and then posterior line. So these lines are really very important. This is a lateral radiograph. In the lateral radiograph, you can see over here, these are the vertebral bodies showing degeneration and compression, somewhat compression, but not way too much. The vertebral bodies are square shaped, they are not wedge shaped, so it's good. And you can see the shadows of the ribs as well as the spinous processes. This is a compression fracture, or this is wedging fracture because of compression, and this is at T11, T12. You can also look for scoliosis. The side of the convexity is the side of the scoliosis. For example, in this side there is right scoliosis and there is convexity on the right side. Then there is a method of measurement of the scoliosis which is called as the Cobb's method. The Cobb's method is very easy. The procedure is written down over here. You can stop this or pause this video to read it, but the simplest way is that you need to find the vertebra having the vertebral body which is aligned maximum, and then on the upper side as well as on the lower side you need to draw these lines, and then you need to intersect these lines, and the angle will be the normal Cobb's angle. If it is more than 30 degree, then there is the need for the surgery, and if it is less than 30 degree, then it can be managed conservatively. This is tuberculosis of the thoracic spine, and this is T2 weighted signal because you can clearly see the fat as well as the water, they are appearing bright, and this is liquefying necrotic disease. So this is the reason that you can see this creamy or semi-soft or semi-solid substance, and which is actually a vertebral body or the intervertebral disc. So this is clearly an image showing the tuberculosis or osteomyelitis. And over here you can see for Shoreman disease, the MRI findings, you can clearly see. Again, I must repeat, this is very clear to see the Schmoll's node. They are just the invaginations of the intervertebral disc into the vertebral body. So this is showing someone who is habitual of having axial loading, they develop these Schmoll's node, and these are also the disc protrusions, but in the craniocaudal direction. Lastly, we need to look for the lumbar vertebra. This is how the lumbar vertebra they appear, and this is MRI or T1 weighted MRI of the lumbar spine. You can see the spine's process, the vertebral bodies, the anterior longitudinal ligament, the posterior longitudinal ligament, the yellow ligament or the ligamentum flavum, the spinal cord, the foramen terminale, the CSF, the sacrum, the sacral vertebrae, and the lumbar vertebral bodies, the intervertebral disc shapes as well as the spaces and the alignment. To see the intervertebral foramen in the cervical, thoracic, and lumbar spine, this slide is really very important. Try to go for uh, oblique, lateral, and lateral views. If you want to look for the facet joints, lateral and oblique at 70 or 45 degrees. The basic projections in the lumbar spine are AP, lateral, right and left obliques, and lateral L5S1. This is the schematic how the lumbar vertebra will appear, the vertebral body, the pedicles, the spine's process, and the butterfly shadow of the articular processes. This is how the radiograph is set up. This is the AP lumbar view. You can see the ribs on top, but there is no rib. The transverse process is free, and you can see the superior and inferior articular facets as well as pedicles, spines process, and transverse process. You have to look for the symmetry and the distance between the intervertebral bodies. It should be same. In the lateral view, you can look for the vertebral bodies, intervertebral discs, pedicle spines process, intervertebral foramen, and the lumbosacral articulation. This is how they appear. Again, you need to draw the three lines. This is how the radiograph is set up. This is lateral radiograph showing the normal lumbar spine. There is no abnormality, just a bit of straightening of the spine, which is not a pathology. This is how you can set the oblique views, and this is the appearance of the oblique views. You can clearly see the facets angle of orientation is 90-degree over here, and again this is Scottish dog appearance of the facets as well, because this is the Scottish dog appearance. In this you can see the same structures but from the other side. There are two angles in the lumbosacral region, the Bargese angle and the Ferguson angle. The angle A is the Bargese angle. Now Bargese angle is on a weight bearing lateral view, a line is drawn along the sacral base. So you first draw a line along the base of the sacrum. This is the base of the sacrum. The sacrum is an inverted triangle, so it has base on the top and apex towards the tail. So you draw a line, line A, then what you do, a second line is drawn parallel to the vertical edge of the image. So vertical edge, this is the vertical edge and parallel to this, and you need to measure this. This is called the Bargese angle. So the inferior angle of intersection averages about 53 degrees with a standard deviation of 4. So anywhere between 49 to 57 is the normal. And then we have the Ferguson angle. On weight bearing lateral view, a line is drawn along the sacral base. Then a second line is drawn horizontal to the edge of the image. In the Bargese angle, we drew this line, but in Ferguson angle, we draw this line, and this is line B. So this creates a Ferguson angle. So normal angle is about 41 degrees with deviation of 2 degrees. So it can be either 39 or 43 degrees. So you must remember small Bargese angle and larger Ferguson angles. They are associated with increased compressive forces at the facets or transverse shearing forces at the disc. So again I repeat, if there is compressive force on the facet, then there will be smaller Bargese angle and larger Ferguson angle. Whereas if the larger Bargese angle is present and smaller Ferguson angle is present, then it is associated with increased axial loading of the disc and the facets. This is axial loading and this is compressive loading. This is normal oblique view. This is right oblique and this is the left oblique. So with this, we are done with the radiology of the spine. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Thank you very much.